G'day, everybody.
That's our word, dude. You can't say that.
Sorry. Hi there. Hello. Thank you for showing up. Today, we're getting nutty about reptiles and trying a few new things on OBS, which I'm really excited about. We had, I think, 20 minutes of standby, which was pretty fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody, this is Zach.
Hello. How you going,
Also
guys?
known as Anti-Khaki.
Anti-khaki here, next to super khaki.
Super Khaki. I thought we're talking about reptiles. I'm going to throw on my Australia Zoo shirt, pull in somebody from Australia.
Right. To talk about reptiles
Does that ever get old?
all the time. But, I mean, like, Steve wasn't special. There's lots of Australians that love reptiles and work with animals and stuff.
On a daily basis, how often do you get stopped? Oh, where are you from?
Oh, every day. It doesn't stop. It's like usually like, oh, are you British?
Well, by way of several oceans and many miles.
Right.
Or kilometers, as you folks use.
So I guess like by that same logic, you're British too.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Oh,
Sure.
right.
We are extended British cousins.
That's okay.
Let's put it that way.
Like round about the same.
Round about the same. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is a wonderfully random show, Misguided Guide. I figured we both know a thing or two about animals, but these books are fantastically outdated. Reptiles do the strangest things. Get in nice and tight there. Oh, good. It's even facing the right direction. Not on Instagram. I'm sorry. By Lenora and Arthur Hornblow. And if you joined us last time, we dove into birds do the strangest things, because on mammals it was a week called Beak Week, where we were trying to get excited about things with beaks. So I read the book, and Zach in the background cooked.
Octopus.
Yeah, because what do they have?
Beaks.
Beaks. It's funny how it's all connected. For no particular reason, I decided let's pull out Reptiles do the strangest things and read it, kind of get nutty about it. So if you remember from our last episode, really these books are like old. Like, let's crack it open here and just take a quick peek.
This is going to be a good read. I'm really excited to dive into this book.
This one's copyrighted in 1970. And by all measure, this would have been a fun book if you were a kid in the 60s and 70s. But since then, we've learned a few more things about reptiles. And I'm going to assume there's a fair amount of this book that's outdated. And right off the bat, I don't know, can you guys smell? It's got that wonderful old book smell. That just screams current knowledge to me. But as we open up the beginning here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Flip the page. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 25 chapters to go. We both have time for this, right?
Who's this boy?
Lenora and Arthur Hornblow.
It sounds so familiar for me. I feel like this must have been on Oprah's book club. I feel like probably.
Probably, yeah. It's in the old club.
That's fair.
Anyway, guys, buckle up. I'm trying to watch the comments on mammals. I think it's just Pam so far. Thank you for watching, Pam. Reptiles do the strangest things. The time of monsters. So let's just pause right off the bat. I'm gonna pull in nice and tight. And then, oh, there. We can see it on all three platforms.
Huh. Can I see this dinosaur? So here's the deal. I don't know. Oh, look at this. So, first off, this is anatomically incorrect. The skull on this Brontosaurus would have been much smaller, much narrower, and this wouldn't nearly have been such a big, bulky animal. And actually, I would argue this animal would have been more sort of horizontal instead of more bulky in the middle and kind of upright. And fun fact, Brontosaurus isn't even a real dinosaur. There was a time called the Bone Wars, and this was back when paleontology was really new. I mean, like anyone with money and a shovel could call themselves a paleontologist.
Keyword money.
Money.
Lots of people had shovels.
And they're like, oh, geez, there's stuff in the ground? That's wild. Let's go check that out. And so this guy pretty much said, well, I've got a shortcut. What if I just took like 8 different bones from different species and put them all together? Then I'll call it Brontosaurus. And to this day, when I'm kind of walking around Target and I see a Brontosaurus toy, I kind of laugh to myself a little bit, because it's the greatest practical joke no one's ever heard of before.
Now we all know. The time of monsters. Millions and millions of years ago, there lived a huge animal called Brontosaurus, who now we know is fake. He was as long as a line of 10 elephants and weighed over 75,000 pounds. He was so big he could hardly move around on land. He spent his days wading in the water, eating green plants.
They probably lived in grasslands, but that's okay.
Don't worry about it. The Brontosaurus was a dinosaur, which means terrible lizard, just in case you didn't know. Dinosaurs were reptiles.
No, they weren't reptiles. That's ridiculous. So, like, reptiles are in their own clade here. So, reptiles, dinosaurs, totally separate. It's in the hips. It's different. The hips are different.
They ruled the earth for millions of years. There were dinosaurs as small as rabbits. That's kind of fun, actually. I like the comparison.
I'm imagining like a scaly rabbit with like weird little scaly ears, you know?
There were dinosaurs as tall as 4-story buildings. A terrible kind of dinosaur. That's not fair. We're putting, words on them.
Have you met one?
Yeah. Called
Rude.
the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Had a huge head and 1,000 teeth.
Wait a second.
Biometrics.
Hold on.
Am I right?
Wait, 1,000 teeth?
It's scarier when you put it in big numbers.
That is... No, like a couple hundred, but they're like big steak knife-like teeth. Anyway, sorry, Mr. Hornblow, I'm tearing apart your book there.
He could kill and eat a brontosaurus. Now, we get to look back on this book, kind of like we started. These were mostly scavengers, right?
Maybe.
We don't, no one's ever seen one.
That's a controversial dinosaur T-Rex.
The Barney, though, totally different category. Tyrannosaurus Rex means king of the lizard tyrants. That's I didn't know that. Is that? I haven't fact checked that, but
that's real. Yeah.
King of the lizard tyrants. That's really cool. Brontosaurus means thunder lizard. Yeah. Dinosaur means terrible lizard. Well, there you go. These fantastic reptiles all died long before there were any people on Earth. I think they could have kept that there as just these fantastic reptiles all died.
But have they been to that one museum in like Tennessee?
The Noah's Ark one?
You could see like a small child ride a Triceratops.
Yeah,
so it looks like a good time.
What's that guy's name?
Ken Ham.
Ken Ham.
Ken Ham's museum, yeah.
Not good, but he put dinosaurs in Noah's Ark under the guise of, I think that the Bible speaks of dragons, so clearly...
So, sure, put them on a boat, they're crazy.
I'm going to skip the rest of this section because it looks boring. I'm left over. There are many kinds of snakes and turtles. There are many kinds of crocodilians and lizards. But there is only one kind of tuatara. And let's just quickly pause, because I know nothing about, very little about reptiles. It's just been one of those frontiers that I'm like I get it, but so many people do this in the wildlife industry and talk about reptiles, and the guys with a snake around their neck are picking it up off the road or a dime a dozen. So I just kind of figured I'm going to focus on other stuff, but now I kind of regret it because reptiles are really cool. Elucidate us. Tuatara.
Tuatara, look at this thing. So it looks like a lizard, but it's not a lizard at all. It's actually like it's a whole own class of reptile, which is really cool. These guys have been around for like millions of years. They can live for, I think, like a little over 100 years for this little thing. But they're from New Zealand, and at one point they would have been really common throughout New Zealand, but now they're kind of isolated into like a little island just off the coast of New Zealand there. They're really, really neat guys. I've only seen tuatara maybe twice. They're really neat little guys. I like them a lot. Trouble with outdoor cats: if you live in New Zealand and you've got cats that live outside, keep them inside.
Brian, I see you're on Facebook with us. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, Brian.
It looks like you also found the shirt, but...
Is that Emily?
No,
okay.
My buddy from high school.
I have a little shout.
You can get these shirts at the Australia Zoo, and you can do it online if you like. I got this, actually, they're trying to make a day called Khaki It in honor of Steve, which is, I think, kind of cool. And I wear khaki all the time anyway, so I was like, this will just be like my Halloween shirt. But November 15th, I think it was his birthday, right? Or something. You're from there. You should know.
Like, I know that we all know each other because there's only 20 million Australians, but still, like...
Yeah, and it's a relatively small island nation.
Is it? It's bigger than continental US.
We're going to skip the rest of the tuatara. We got a nice little demo on that. Let's just move to the strange song. The largest reptiles on Earth are the crocodilians. These are crocodiles, alligators, and their cousins. So insert cousins.
Do they just like glaze over and their cousins like
They
forget?
just, what's that winter game where you like run with that heavy weight and push it on ice?
That's the curling.
Curling. They just
like and
curled
their
the
cousins. That's a caiman and gharial.
Okay, yeah, there you go. So how much more writing? That basically is the same amount of lettering.
Right. How do you like? Have we seen a gharial before? Like they're cool. I mean, like bloody, they toot to each other in the water. That's neat, man.
How much cuter does it get? You heard it here first on the Wild Project.
Right here, exclusive.
Large or small, most reptiles are strangely silent. Some have no voices at all, but the song of the crocodilian is one of the loudest sounds in the animal world. The mighty roar of a big crocodile rolls like thunder through the swamp.
What crocodiles roaring? And who's so one of the loudest animals? I mean, they travel a really, really far distance, but loudest in the world. I don't know, Mr. Hornblower.
Sounds like on mammals we might have been going with no sound for this
Really?
whole little bit.
Whole time?
I just turned it back on.
Okay.
It looks like it's operating now.
Are we good now?
Thank you, Pam, for letting us know.
Fine work, Pam.
Yeah, I asked her if it's better, so we'll know in about a minute.
All right, cool.
The latency, but it'll be fine.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, the indicator's going now, so I have confidence.
Cool.
Where were we? Crocodilians live in swamps near rivers and oceans. They love water. All of them are strong swimmers. They catch and eat most of their food right in the water. A crocodile drifts slowly down the river. He hardly makes a ripple. Only his eyes and the tip of his nose are above the water. He can breathe and see without being seen.
Master of the subterfuge.
Yes, insert David Attenborough. He is watching and waiting for his prey. It might be a bug, might be a fish, or it might be a big animal. Awesome. Thanks, Pam, for letting us know, or we would have gone the whole time
Hey,
with no sound.
so I get that like baby crocodilians like eat insects and stuff, but I like how they go, well, it might be a bug. Straight away.
Start small and work your way up.
It's like a 20-foot reptile. Who's this? Who is that? What is he doing?
Looks like he's wrestling
I
a
like
crocodilian.
how just forevermore, like crocodilians are meant to be wrestled.
I'm going to just skim through this till we get to what's going on here. African crocodiles. Okay, got it. Ooh, here we go. At animal farms in Florida, you can see these strange wrestling matches. The jaws of big crocodilians are so strong they can crush a man. Fair. The terrible teeth of the reptiles look very frightening. But an alligator cannot bite if his mouth is held shut. So just hold the mouth shut and you're fine. So the men just hold the toothy jaws closed
That's
and
nice.
pretend to wrestle.
But why? Why?
But why? They may even have to shake the alligator's head to make the fight look dangerous. The 60s and 70s must have been a weird time, man.
It sounds like it, because we have to make crocodiles look dangerous.
The poor gators probably just want to get away. That sounds fair. This section's also quite long. Let's just sort of jump to the wonderful serpents.
The problem that I don't like about that section is it doesn't talk about, like, ecologically, like, why crocodilians are really important. I mean, crocodilians, like, they keep rivers really healthy. They keep wetlands really healthy. What else? They fertilize rivers. They encourage a lot of aquatic plant growth through, like, defecating and stuff. And what's cool is if we're living in like a fishing village, areas that have like high crocodile densities generally increase greater yields of fish and also greater diversity of fish, because they make sure that like one species group doesn't overpower another.
So it's almost like letting predators do their thing is a benefit to the environment.
Right.
So depredation permits.
Right. So it's almost like predators kind of steer the direction of the entire environment.
Now, because I'm dressed like him, was this part of Steve's messaging a little bit?
No.
Admittedly, I haven't watched very much Steve Irwin.
So,
I got it. Like, he was very inspiring, but, 2 episodes in, you're like, I get it.
Oh, so Steve's deal was he was probably the first person I remember speaking kind of lovingly about reptiles.
Yeah.
And getting excited about reptiles, but that's kind of where that lived. Like, ecology wasn't, like, really his vibe.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting starting point, because you have to build a sense of love first, I think, in order to get to the ecology.
Definitely, yeah.
The wonderful serpents. So let's just sort of jump into that. In old stories and legends, you may read about serpents. That is just another name for snakes, just to clarify. There are short snakes and long snakes. There are thin snakes and fat snakes. There are snakes that can swim 1,000 miles out to sea. There are snakes that fly from tree to tree. Some snakes curl themselves up in a ball. One kind of snake can spit poison right in people's eyes, which is actually my Shangaan field name, because the Shangaan people in South Africa are pretty fond of assigning nicknames kind of based loosely off your personality, and they notice that I'm often fairly quiet, but when I speak it's really direct and to the point and often fairly truthful.
Yeah.
So they called me Shavita Nkombe, which means spitting cobra. Because
which also means speaks with venom.
Speaks with venom. I'm into it. That's a cool name. Another kind of snake can catch a bat flying through the air. Many people don't know that snakes can do such wonderful things. So to illustrate that, they've put this snake next to a baby, just so we all feel more comfortable.
So wait, the snakes can do wonderful things. Look, snake next to a baby.
It's cuddling with a baby.
So it's also a nanny.
A little bit, yeah.
It's a python nanny.
It's a babysitter.
Yeah.
Babies like to play with snakes and pat their shiny skins. Some snakes make nice pets. But look out. Some wonderful serpents can be dangerous. Oh, here we go. The dangerous rattle. Dogs bark, birds sing, pigs grunt. But only one creature on earth can rattle its tail. This is the famous rattlesnake. On his tail, he has a built-in rattle. Hence rattlesnake. When he is angry or frightened, he rattles it back and forth. A baby rattler has no rattle, so out of luck. He has only a tiny button, just a cute little button on the end of his tail. But in every other way, he is like a grown-up rattlesnake. Baby rattlers can take care of themselves as soon as they're born. So precocial or altricial, but that's a little too advanced for this book and tonight's theme, so we're going to continue. Each baby must hunt food for his own. Rattlers are born with special teeth called fangs. When they bite, poison comes through these fangs. So just so we know, not poison, venom, and can you please quickly describe the 3 types of snake venom?
There are,
The 3 major
the main ones. Yeah, sure. I was going to say, well, there's a couple. So poison and venom. It's all about the delivery method. So poisonous animals are things like a toad, a monarch butterfly. Technically, there's one species of poisonous snake. It's called a Rhabdophis. They live in South Asia, right? And so this thing eats a toad, and it absorbs the toxin from the toad. And if you eat the Rhabdophis, that's where that comes from. So anyway, so generally, like poison is absorbed through the skin or digested, right? So if I were to eat a monarch butterfly, I'm not going to feel too great. Now, venomous species are animals where it's either injected or bitten through like a bite or a sting, right? So things like a rattlesnake, vipers, scorpion, a blue ring octopus, things like that. Right? Now, generally speaking, within most venoms, venom's a really flexible substance. You can either have venoms that make your food go a little bit sleepy, or so you can eat it quicker, or
like Batman.
Like Batman. Does Batman do that?
Well, he doesn't kill anybody. He puts them to sleep.
Yeah, like a sleeper hold sort of vibe. Yeah. Or you can get animals like the Wurmschlange that if you like a person is bitten, it makes you bleed from every orifice, and so you kind of check out.
Personal detail: favorite snake, the Wurmschlange.
I think it's the name.
It's the name.
Wurmschlange.
It's the presence.
It feels right.
It's just all of it together.
Yeah. And so you've got like neurotoxins, myotoxins, cytotoxins, and hemotoxins are kind of like your key venoms.
And if you had to pick, we have a snake right here.
Yeah.
You are going to get bitten. Which of those would you rather be bitten by?
Neurotoxin, because I'm checking out real quick. Absolutely.
Fair enough.
I'll see you in 20 minutes.
Yep. Pam says monarchs are poisonous.
Yeah?
Yeah. That was something I was only made aware of like in the last year or so.
Yeah.
Pretty fantastic.
Truth.
Let's jump back into our story. We're trying to stay on a vague time schedule. The dancer in a basket. You haven't seen this image yet.
Oh, that's good.
The dancer in a basket.
That feels right. Pretense. So, any of you that have ever seen videos or pictures
Or
of
Indiana Jones.
of some bloke who's got like a cobra and he's got a flute and the cobra is rising up out of the basket and it's like dancing to the man with the flute. Snakes are deaf. They can't hear. They can't hear like sounds coming out of the air, right? So really what that snake is doing is it's following the motion of the flute beat for beat. So it's not really having a great time out at the club. It's like, what's that flute going to do? And is it going to jump at me? That kind of vibe. Yeah.
The dancer in a basket. In India, men called snake charmers make snakes dance. Their favorite dancing snake is the king cobra. The snake charmer puts a basket down on the street. He sits by it and plays a flute. Suddenly, up comes a cobra's head. The big serpent hisses and leans toward the man, but the wise charmer moves away because, he doesn't want to get bitten. He knows the venom. There we go, now we use the right word. Weird that the editors missed that.
Yeah.
In a cobra's bite could kill him. The cobra watches as the charmer plays the flute. Soon the skin below the snake's head begins to flatten and spread. The odd swelling is called the hood of the cobra, much like what you would put on a camera while you're shooting photographs. This odd swelling, I already read that. It is a sign the cobra is angry. Now the hooded snake sways back and forth. He seems to be dancing to the music, but he's only following the moving flute.
We talked about it. There you go.
They even knew that in the 70s.
They got one thing right from the 70s. Good on you. Reptiles do the strangest things.
Like all snakes, the cobra is deaf and et cetera, et cetera. We've already heard that part. Ooh, here we go.
I'm actually surprised that they thought of this for this book in
That's
particular.
a bit, progressive for that era.
Right.
You got to consider the context of when things were written and
Right.
what was going on at the time and how much we knew.
Yeah.
You got to consider, like in my field in anthropology, Raymond Dart was still writing his killer ape theory, and that was considered cutting edge. And we've come a bit of a ways since then.
Some questions on what's going on here.
Let's see on Instagram. No, it looks like a few folks joined.
Fair.
Double check Facebook real quick.
Yeah, if you're watching, send your questions. Just kind of
Jump in there. This is supposed to be interactive if we can, which I don't think we said, but now you know.
Yeah.
The big squeeze. Unlike the Big Apple, the giants of the snake world are the python and the anaconda. I'm not going to dispute it right now. Both can grow over 30 feet long.
When? Where?
Some are as big around as a telephone pole.
What? Unsubstantiated reports.
In the jungles of Burma, which has been renamed now, big pythons live among the trees. They wind their heavy bodies around the branches. They crawl, well, that's maybe not the best phrasing. They slither.
Rectilinear locomotion. Yeah.
They rectilinear locomotion along the jungle trails. Sometimes they crawl into a village and terrify the natives.
What?
That's a bit weird phrasing.
It's like ooga booga, python.
Come on, we can do better. They eat birds and small animals. The biggest pythons often eat deer and wild pigs. Pythons and anacondas have no venom. They have another way of killing. They twist their bodies around their prey. They squeeze, and soon the victim stops breathing, and then they can eat him. What if this is a children's book?
Yeah.
A python kills a wild pig. Then he grabs its head with his many teeth, and slowly he pulls himself over his prey. Little by little, the pig goes in, and soon the python has an enormous middle. After such a big meal, he may or may not eat again for a year. And I just am reminiscing on one of my first zoological jobs, where I was cleaning and inventorying the bone collection that they have. And they had an anaconda skeleton, and a very nicely laid out one. It had some fat deposits all over it, so I went through and I had to clean all the fat out, and I put my fingers into its mouth to reach something, and the mouth was held at an angle about like that, and I got bitten by a dead anaconda, because when I tried to pull my hand back out, the teeth caught my finger and laid into it, and it was proper stuck for probably darn near a half hour.
That's not a good time there, dude.
So that's probably my dumbest moment, is getting bit by a dead anaconda, but we all have moments we're not proud of. Rob, you asked when this book was written. We checked the copyright date, And I apologize on mammals. I didn't turn the audio on. It's my mistake. Learning curve. It's copyrighted in 1970. And my father remembers getting these books when he was a kid. He was born in 63. And I remember as a kid, he gave me this whole collection. And there's a ton of these. They're really fun. On our last episode, we read Birds Do the Strangest Things. On this episode, of course, Reptiles. I think next time, there's just a book generally called Animals Do the Strangest Things, which I can't wait to sink into with all of you guys.
God.
And I checked the internet, actually. There's several more in the series that I didn't have as a kid. So I'm keen to try to get copies of those and read them out, because these are a ton of fun to read and try to see the vantage point of that era and the new knowledge that we have now to apply to it. Should we keep reading, or should we just make a guest appearance?
Oh, we should make a guest appearance, but I also want to like double back. So
Double back, please.
This the Big Squeeze chapter.
Actually, we have a nice visual here. Not good?
Amazing. Is it wrapped around a tree?
Yeah, I know.
So
Regularly.
hang on. So it's got like a caiman. So this for reference. So it's got like a caiman, I assume, and it's wrapped around the tree with the caiman for dramatic effect. Yeah. So it goes like pythons and anacondas. It just glazes right over just boas, like as a
Forget about it.
constrictor group. You know. So like there's like what like I think 50 or 60 different boas like around the world. So there are a couple main groups of snakes. So you've got your elapids, and so those are things like a black mamba, your cobras, Wormschlong is an elapid too, vipers, Viperidae. So you've got your rattlesnakes and baboon vipers and adders and that whole crew.
Can I add one?
Yes.
Colubridae.
Colubridae, colubrids, the waste bin taxon. The one where we're like, well, none of you are venomous or a constrictor, so Colubridae, you. So colubrids, and then you've got your boids, and so that's going to be your pythons and boas. So there are about, I don't know, quite a few different boa species around the world, but I think there's even more pythons out there. I've got one in this basket. So this python in particular is called a jungle carpet python, Morelia spilota, if you want to get weird and fancy. So this is an Australian species, and so I actually grew up with this animal in my toilet and in my backyard and in the garage and other weird spots around the house. So this is a female, and she's pretty great. I like her a lot. Now, I do want to express, she's not a pet. I'm actually very, 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 very against the pet trade as a concept, but especially the reptile trade. So Alex,
Yeah.
can you guess how many live imports of animals came into America in the last like 5 years?
It's got to be like 100 or so, right?
I wish. So about 600,000, right? So what percentage of those 600,000 imports do you think came from or came here for the pet trade?
Quite a number. Actually, I was just talking to Brian the other day about the idea that right now in pet shops there's a huge demand for all kinds of, especially reptiles, that aren't being met because nobody's supplying them due to the pandemic.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
But of that is 92% of 600,000 shipments came here for the pet trade. Now, if you guys have been to reptile expos and they've got, you know, like little baby carpet pythons in little tubs, or frogs and tanks and whatever, 50% of those animals are from the wild. It's bad. Like, it's like really, really bad. I mean, the pet trade in reptiles is so bad that if I'm a herpetologist, so somebody who studies reptiles and amphibians, if I find a new species of reptile, if I write a publication, I have to leave out where I found this animal, because immediately extinct in the wild, endangered, critically endangered, because it's nabbed up for the pet trade, you know. So
it hurts so much that we're at that kind of a point right now. Yeah.
And it's weird, and so that's just like the imports that we're aware of. I mean, I look at her all the time and I go, what are you doing here? Because in Australia it's illegal to export any native wildlife, right? So we've got this Australian species here that shouldn't be here, but here you are.
And do you mind sharing a little bit of light as to where exactly she came from and why we have her right now?
Right. So at this point,
not pet trade. Okay?
not pet trade, right now. So at this point, so I dedicate my life to working and studying big cats out in the wild. Now, in my early days, I actually worked in a small zoo, and so she actually came from that small zoo, and she needed a home. And I was like, well, better me than somebody else. And so she lives with me now. And so that's kind of her vibe. But she is really cool. I do like her species quite a bit.
Looks like she might have recently shed.
Yeah, she did. She's really, really vibrant. I mean, you guys maybe can have a look at this, the scaling that she's got. She's got cool little S's all over her skin there. Now,
down below too.
And now the cool deal is you can see how tightly wound she's wrapped around my arm here. So animals like this are built to live in trees. So she's a tree python is what she is. And so she can hang on like mad, like really, really well. She's got a cool party trick too. So she'll go ahead and just kind of dangle, like no stress, like just like that. And so these carpet pythons actually will kind of hang from trees like this out in the wild and launch out and catch like a fruit bat, like mid-air. So they're really, really good about catching bats. It's like one of their favorite foods. So bats and birds is what they're like. But here we are, little snake. And there's 40 of these. There's 40 different python species worldwide. And so pythons are an old world snake. You don't see any python species in the new world. So so you see pythons in Africa, you get like African rock pythons and other guys like that. In Asia, there's the reticulated python, which is the longest one in the world. Then boas are a New World snake generally. So you really only see boas like here in California, those little rosy boas that you see. And then in South America, you get boa constrictors, and the anaconda is the largest one in the world, and all that.
Well, we'll kind of shift gears a little bit, leaving the realm of snakes. We're going to move on to shelled creatures.
Tortoise!
Tortoise, yes.
Tortoise, yes!
And terrapin and turtle. Those are three different things for those of us keeping score at home. Transport yourself to the Pacific Islands. Like I'm picturing myself on a beautiful beach, small, secluded space right now. On a faraway island in the Pacific Ocean lives the biggest of all tortoise. These are the Galapagos tortoise. Their thick legs look almost like the legs of elephants. These huge reptiles live to a very old age. One is known to have lived more than 152 years, which I'm going to guess maybe was changed after this book was written.
We'll talk about it.
Some Galapagos tortoise may weigh over 500 pounds. And if you see a big one at the zoo, you might have a chance to ride it. Which is my quick segue and the reason I didn't hold up the book.
Tortoise ride, 3 o'clock, be there, be square. Tortoise rides. What?
Interesting choice of imagery. Pam wants to know, we'll double back, Pam wants to know if the snake has a name.
Her name is Kajita. And Kajita is one of the many names for the Australian rainbow serpent. So in Aboriginal culture, one of the creation myths is a giant snake had kind of wrapped around the world and created rivers wherever it went, and whenever its coils moved one way, it created a mountain range and all that. And one of the names for the rainbow serpent is Kajita. So that's all.
There we go. She does have a name. The sea giants. Some of the turtles that live in the sea are giants too. They are the green turtles. They can be as long as a man and 5 times as heavy. The sea turtles are fine swimmers. They do not have legs like land turtles. So, backpedal a tiny bit. Tortoise, turtle, and terrapin, 3 different things. Turtles generally come from the oceans, salt water. Terrapins, generally fresh water. And tortoise, generally land-dwelling, although some do like to take the occasional dip. But moving on. Sea turtles spend all their lives in the water. Also debatable. And they eat and sleep in the water. But there is one thing they have to do on land. There we go. The turtles of the sea must come up on beaches to lay their eggs. On a moonlit night, a mother turtle crawls slowly up the sand. It's hard for her to walk on her flippers. She does something very strange. She pushes her flippers through the sand as if she were swimming, and it takes her a long time to drag her heavy body up the beach. Sometimes she stops and lets out a huge sigh. So they're basically Eeyore. The green turtle waddles along the beach looking for a spot she likes, and at last she finds a dry place high above the water. With her front flipper, she scoops out a bed for herself. Behind the bed, she digs a hole. Now she begins to lay her eggs. Soon there may be as many as 100 eggs in the hole. They look like a pile of ping-pong balls. Fair. Then the big turtle covers the eggs with sand. Slowly she waddles back to the sea. She'll never see her eggs again. So, no parenting. A pile of leaves. It's a nice poetic image.
Are we talking vipers now?
I'm going to just keep reading and let's see. Some people think the Mata Mata is the oddest looking creature in the world. Light bulb goes off. Mata Mata.
It's a great little river turtle from the Amazon. I like Mata Mata a lot. They're really, really neat. Is there a picture there?
Kind of.
Sure. Yeah, it's kind of like a soft shell / snapping turtle from the Amazon, and their mouth is like a little vacuum cleaner, and they just sit there and just suck in like fish that like get close to their mouth.
Hence the fish being absorbed.
Yeah, they're really cool. I like them.
Some people think the Mata Mata is the oddest looking creature in the world. He surely is the oddest looking turtle. His shell is covered with bumps. Sticking to the bumps are many tiny green plants. The Mata Mata looks like a pile of rubbish and leaves. On a shallow river bottom in South America, a Mata Mata sits waiting. So just picture that BBC kind of orchestral music, heavy cello in here, right? He stretches his long neck out up the water. He takes a breath through his strange snorkel nose, and then he pulls his head back under the water. He's hungry. His tiny eyes watch for fish, and suddenly, a group of fish swim over. They try to eat some bits from the rubbish pile, but they don't eat. They get eaten. Wow, it's amazing.
Whoa!
The Mata Mata just opens his enormous mouth and swoosh, a great load of water rushes in. A fish gets swept in too, and then the Mata Mata spits out the water, but he doesn't spit out the fish. Now, just quick pause here, because this is how vaguely sea turtles eat as well. They just sort of swim along, sucking up stuff. And in our current world, there's more and more garbage being put into the ocean all over the place. And how is a sea turtle supposed to distinguish a jellyfish from a plastic bag? So as this animal is inhaling, all these items are going into its stomach, and then it exhales the water, spits it back out, and the trash gets stuck on the inside. It's full of bristle all the way up through the neck. So every time we encounter an opportunity to use fewer amounts of plastic, I encourage you, take that opportunity. Because in the long run, it's going to make a huge impact on landfills, the way we recycle, and ultimately the ocean. The giant Pacific garbage patch. Do you want to share any thoughts?
Yeah, imagine a garbage patch out in the Pacific Ocean the size of France. And that's just all single-use plastics and things that drift all together and sort of move as like one unit out in the ocean.
I'd like to see that go away in my lifetime.
We'll see.
We'll see. For the sake of time, I'm just taking a peek here. We're gonna jump to maybe 3 more selections from this book, because this altogether this book is 60 pages. So it's not the kind of book you'd sit down and read to your kid cover to cover maybe at night, unless they want you to. Let's jump to The Little Clown. And I do have to warn you ahead, there's an image that's not really appropriate by today's standards. This is a children's book, so don't worry, but I just want to caution you all now. There's an image that wouldn't be considered too PC in today's world. I'm going to save this and not even show you.
Okay.
Just let's read about the little clown first.
Okay, perfect.
There's almost 3,000 kinds of lizards. They come in many colors and sizes, and they do many odd things. Most lizards have no voices at all, but the merry little gecko squeaks and squeals. The merry little gecko.
A lot of geckos do. There's one called a khaki gecko. It literally sits on a wall and says, "Tokai!"
And he says, "Gecko, gecko." That's how he got his name. Geckos are found in warm countries. Some kinds like to live in people's houses. The people who have geckos are lucky. Their little lizards will run around eating up roaches and mosquitoes and other pests. It's fun to see geckos running around the house. They're pretty. I remember in Kruger, remember at Satara Camp? We stayed in the Frankel house, big, beautiful compound. Everyone had their own room.
Yeah.
I remember that night going into my room and laying down and looking up, and across the thatched roof was a house gecko just doing his little thing.
Yeah.
Just so nice to see.
We do that growing up because we'd let geckos in our house so they eat the spiders and stuff. So.
Geckos are great climbers. They can run up and down walls. Some kinds can even run across a ceiling. These geckos have special pads on their feet. On the bottom of each pad are many tiny, tiny hooks. The strange pads are not sticky, but they can cling to almost anything. A gecko with these pads on his feet can walk right up a glass window. In Malaysia, some boys use the gecko's remarkable feet to play tricks. They tie a string around the big gecko's neck, and they carry him up to the roof of the low building. There they wait until a man comes down the street. Then they lean over and dangle the gecko above his head. The gecko's feet grab onto the man's hat, and the boys quickly pull the string up, and up comes the gecko, and off comes the hat.
Is this Looney Tunes? What is this? They need to see this.
Again, not really PC in today's world, but here we go.
That's the most Looney Tunes thing I've ever heard. Okay, get the gecko with sticky feet, tie a string around it, catch the hat. Whack!
Where do you think Looney Tunes got their ideas?
This book.
So those were geckos for you. Moving on, I wanted to talk about the smoke puffer. And I distinctly remember reading this section as a kid. Just the imagery at the top.
Ah, yeah, that's cool.
The big marine iguanas are the best swimmers of all the lizards. They spend all their time by the sea. They live on the beaches and rocks of the Galapagos Islands. There they may lie in the sun for hours. They wait for the water to go down as the tides go out. Then they crawl slowly down to the water to look for their favorite food, seaweed. Marine iguanas are angry-looking reptiles. There's a lot of very harsh
Just negative
descriptions.
language.
I see why Steve was doing his thing.
Yeah, well,
They have tough, flat faces. Along their backs are strange, sharp spines. And when people come near them, they do an amazing thing. They puff, and kind of steam comes through their nose, and it looks scary. But the marine iguanas are really just very shy. They like to sit together on rocks by the sea like old men. I added that last part. And we're going to finish tonight with quite possibly one of the most delightful, I'm going to use a more positive term,
there you go.
reptile in the world, the water walker. The basilisk has no frill, but he has a crest along his back and tail. Now this is an image that's a dime a dozen. You've definitely seen on BBC or Nat Geo or Animal Planet, Discovery, throw it dart, any
Costa
network.
Rica?
Well, network-wise.
Ah, sure.
They've
yes.
all given you this shot with elegant music and Attenborough in the background. Challenge for anybody watching, find a new way to talk about the basilisk, or better yet, an animal that we've never heard of before. Because I'm sure there's stuff out there that deserves screen time and just gets no screen time. Anyway, I'm getting a little too esoteric. The basilisk has no frills, but he has a crest along his back and tail. His tail is long and thin and very strong, and sometimes he uses it to help him run. Isn't another name for this the Jesus wizard?
Sure.
I think so. Jesus, very biblical night. He can run fast and he can climb trees. And strangest of all, this funny lizard can walk on water. When the basilisk is frightened, he gets up on his back legs and he runs. And he swings from side to side. His long tail helps to keep his balance. And if he comes to a stream, he runs right over it. I feel like that could be an Andy Griffith line. He runs right over it.
Yeah,
Maybe someday we'll do an Andy Griffith version of this, because I don't know
what all.
And I don't know what all. So, growing up, we watched the Andy Griffith Show, Bonanza, and Little House on the Prairie. Those are like the only shows we watched.
Hey, listen, dude. Like the '60s called, they want their TV shows there.
I know, but that's all that explains a lot about me. I have a fun Andy Griffith impression, but I'm a little nervous now. So maybe we'll do a whole episode as
That's the spirit.
Andy and Barney Fife.
Yeah, whoever that is.
Let's get Jeff to play Barney Fife.
That's the spirit. Let's get him going.
His long tail helps to keep his balance. If he comes to a stream, he runs right over it. He may get tired and sink into the water, but that's all right. The basilisk can swim too. Well, that's handy. Now, there's a lot more in this book that we could jump into and get excited about. We'll just finish with the last few lines from this. There are many creatures, almost just as strange as reptiles. And among the strangest are the remarkable reptiles that still share our earth. We've got a little collection there of different animals. Mind you, dinosaurs, not reptiles. But just to remember that there's a lot of wildlife out there, roughly 8.7 million species and counting. And it's often the same faces that get attention. So I'm glad this book finished with that note, encouraging you to consider there's stuff we haven't seen out there, stuff that's undiscovered out there, and it merits our attention and excitement.
Yes.
Any closing words?
Let's keep our world wild, because you know, at the end of the day, there are 8.7 million species around the world. You know, the world's forests and oceans and deserts and jungles aren't just homes for wildlife. They form our collective home. We need to take care of our home as you would take care of your home, where you are sitting here watching us two just kind of talk about reptiles for an hour. So, yeah.
Remember, as far as we're aware, this is the only known place in the universe where you can go like this and not die instantly. This is a lot better than Venus, guys. So do our little bit to try to protect our planet. We'll see you next time.